In the year 2054, on the icy surface of planet Nlham, Mickey regains consciousness, shivering from the frost in a deep crevasse. Spotting a ship nearby, he calls out to his friend Timo, who is visibly shocked to see Mickey alive. But instead of helping him, Timo only retrieves Mickey's flamethrower, coldly stating that saving him isn't worth the effort since he'll just die again soon anyway. This version of Mickey is a clone, the 17th to be precise. Every time he dies, the company simply prints a new body. His memories are uploaded weekly and transferred into the fresh clone to ensure continuity without memory gaps. The process has become so routine for the science team that they barely acknowledge Mickey during it. During the printing of Mickey 17, a disconnected hose briefly interfered with the process before a scientist reattached it. Cloning is outlawed on Earth, but permitted in space for individuals classified as expendables. As an expendable, Mickey is assigned hazardous tasks without concern for his survival, knowing he can always be replaced. One mission required him to step outside the spaceship for repairs. However, Mickey quickly realized the job was a ruse. The equipment was perfectly functional. The real goal was to expose him to radiation and document his suffering as he slowly perished. In a sudden accident, a tool slipped and severed his hand, a spectacle that the scientists found fascinating. The next Mickey printed had only a 15-minute lifespan, so the researchers focused on collecting samples, which Dr. Dorothy deemed special. Mickey's story began 4 years prior on Earth. He and Timo were best friends, and together they took out a shady loan to open a macaron shop. The business flopped, attracting the attention of dangerous creditors demanding repayment. The duo attempted to flee but were taken down by specialized grenades that electrocuted them into unconsciousness. Upon waking, they found themselves face to face with mafia boss Darius, a man infamous for using a chainsaw on his victims. It was clear, if they failed to pay up, they would be next. With no options left, they decided to leave Earth. Mickey applied for the colony expedition, though millions of others had the same idea. The mission was led by Kenneth, a former congressman who had lost 2 consecutive elections. Despite his failures, he had amassed a cult-like following and secured major sponsorship from a religious organization. Timo easily secured a spot in the expedition thanks to a mysteriously obtained pilot's learner permit. Lacking any useful qualifications, Mickey blindly selected expendables on the application without bothering to read the description. A company representative later gave Mickey a tour while explaining the expendable program. The printer used all organic waste from the spaceship, including food scraps, human excrement, and even corpses, to create new clones. But Mickey, utterly distracted by the woman's alluring scent, hardly paid attention to her explanation. She even removed a zit from his forehead to prevent it from appearing on all future clones before sending him into the machine for his initial scan. His memories were then backed up and stored in a specialized brick. To prepare him for his role, Mickey was injected with a solution that stimulated old memories, causing him to relive his mother's death. In the flashback, young Mickey had pressed a red button during a car ride, leading to a tragic crash. The overwhelming recollection sent him into a breakdown. The woman handed him a gun and instructed him to end himself as a test of faith in the system, insisting he needed to become comfortable with dying. When Mickey hesitated, she pulled the trigger for him, but nothing happened. Shortly afterward, the spaceship launched, and Mickey had to adjust to his new reality among the crew. Life on board was bleak. The food was terrible, and rations were strictly enforced. If someone took more than their share, an alarm would sound, forcing them to drop it. During the crew's first lunch break, Kenneth made a grand entrance, accompanied by his wife Ilfa and several assistants assigned by the church. It was evident that Kenneth was little more than a figurehead, manipulated by both Ilfa and the religious organization for their own agendas. Many crew members idolized him, ecstatic at his presence, but a few remained indifferent. That was when Mickey first noticed Nasha, a security officer, and instantly fell for her. She invited him to sit with her, sharing her meal, and they quickly bonded. Meanwhile, Kenneth delivered an impassioned speech about their mission to reach a new planet and build a self-sustaining society. Because food supplies were limited, he announced a ban on all intimate relations, claiming that unnecessary calorie expenditure needed to be avoided. The rule was met with discontent, so he promised that once a colony was established, he would implement an intercourse encouragement campaign. While his devoted followers revered him, Mickey and Nasha ignored the mandate entirely, engaging in secret rendezvous. They meticulously planned their encounters, assigning each position a number to reenact later. Curious crew members frequently pestered Mickey about the experience of dying, much to his discomfort. One day, Nasha, fed up with their inquiries, threatened to shoot them so they could find out firsthand. This sparked a cafeteria brawl, resulting in security detaining everyone involved and locking them in a cage overnight. Mickey's food rations were cut in half. Whenever women like Kai and Jennifer tried to sit with him, Nasha would swiftly intervene, reminding them that he was already taken. Eventually, the ship reached Nlham, and the scientists immediately sent Mickey out, without a helmet, to absorb all the viruses in the environment. As expected, he fell ill and died almost instantly. However, the experiment was repeated multiple times in pursuit of a vaccine. On one occasion, Mickey was still alive inside the body bag when the scientists noticed, but they discarded him into the cycler regardless. Thanks to Mickey's 12-16, a vaccine was successfully developed, allowing humans to explore the planet without wearing masks. Mickey was part of the first exploration team sent onto Nlham's surface. They ventured into an ice cave, where Kai discovered a hole in the wall, revealing strange, worm-like creatures. One of them lunged at her, and as she attempted to flee, it latched onto her leg. A team member fired their weapon, scaring the creatures away. The group attempted to exit the cave, but Jennifer froze in fear upon hearing a creature above her. In a panic, she fired at it, accidentally shattering the ice, which collapsed and crushed her to death. Back on the ship, Kenneth furiously berated Mickey for surviving instead of Jennifer, arguing that expendables were meant to die in place of real people. Upon reviewing footage of the creatures, he named them creepers. In response to Mickey's failure, his rations were cut again, and his work shifts were doubled. He was assigned the task of collecting creeper samples, with Timo flying by occasionally to drop off food. One afternoon, while traversing Nlham's frozen terrain, Mickey stepped onto a patch of thin ice, which gave way beneath him, causing him to plummet into a deep crevasse. After Timo left, a massive creeper discovered Mickey and dragged him away. Soon, baby creepers surrounded him, nibbling at his fingers in a playful manner. The mother creeper pulled him out of the crevasse and emitted a series of sounds, which Mickey attempted to mimic. Observing the creatures, he mused that clones must be so repulsive that even alien predators refuse to eat them. Suddenly, he spotted a company truck passing by. He shouted for help, but the crew didn't hear him, so he sprinted after the vehicle and managed to climb onto its roof. Upon returning to the ship, Mickey entered his quarters and collapsed onto his bed, only to realize that Mickey 18 had already been printed and was inside the room. 17 panicked. Multiple versions of an expendable were strictly forbidden. Before he could react, 18 grabbed a weight and knocked him unconscious. The problem of multiples dated back to Earth when cloning technology was first discovered. Ethical debates arose regarding its potential abuse, particularly concerning a scientist named Alan, who was suspected of being a sociopath. A witness claimed he was responsible for the deaths of numerous homeless individuals, but Alan had an airtight alibi. Eventually, police secured a warrant to raid his home and found that he had secretly cloned himself to commit murders while maintaining a perfect alibi. While 2 versions of Alan were interrogated, a third was still actively killing people on the streets. When the third Alan was finally captured, it sparked a legal crisis regarding how to prosecute identical individuals for separate crimes. The church condemned the existence of multiples, insisting that a single soul should not occupy more than one body. However, the scientific community argued that the technology had valuable applications. Kenneth inserted himself into the debate, declaring that while printed bodies were sinful, they could still serve a greater purpose. This led to the introduction of the expendable program, with strict regulations ensuring that only one expendable existed per planet. Kenneth also promised that any occurrence of multiples would result in immediate. In the present, 17 regained consciousness to find 18 transporting him in a cart. He recalled Nasha once saying that each Mickey turned out slightly different, and 18 seemed particularly aggressive. As they reached the cycler room, 17 attempted to ambush 18 from behind, but 18 anticipated the attack and countered, mercilessly beating 17. With his back pressed against the cycler's opening, 17 proposed a deal. They could split the workload and take turns dying. 18, perplexed by 17's apparent fear of death, couldn't understand why someone who had died countless times would still be afraid. Despite 17's passionate plea about their individuality, 18 remained unconvinced and attempted to shove him into the machine. Before he could succeed, the moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Both Mickeys darted into hiding. Timo entered the room, secretly distributing a recreational drug called oxazofil to fellow crew members. Once his customer left, 18 emerged from the shadows and attacked Timo, blaming him for ruining his life with the failed macaron business. In a fit of rage, he shoved Timo toward the cycler and prepared to dispose of him. Before he could finish the job, 17 tackled him, starting a brutal struggle. 17 desperately tried to pull Timo to safety, but 18 yanked him away. The fight escalated, with both clones exchanging blows until 18 seized a heated metal rod, ready to strike a fatal blow. Their fight was interrupted again when Nasha and Zeke, the head of security, entered the room. Thinking quickly, 18 coerced Timo into going along with a lie. He had actually saved Timo from falling. Not wanting his illegal activities exposed, Timo reluctantly played along. 17, still hidden, watched in silence, growing increasingly jealous as Nasha left with 18, getting physically close with him. 17 attempted to follow, but was stopped by a church representative, who insisted he take a picture with the company mascot. The representative also announced that Mickey had won a private dinner with Kenneth and Ilfa. As soon as they seat him, Mickey can't stop devouring the incredible food. Kenneth apologizes for his reaction to Jennifer's death, and Kai soon joins them for dinner. The couple expresses their regret over Jennifer's passing and shares their vision for the colony's future. They want only pure-blooded members, and since Kai fits their criteria, they expect her to have children. While other colonies use chips in fertilized embryos, they disapprove of that method. Suddenly, Mickey vomits all over the floor. The science team rushes in upon noticing a rash forming on his neck, deducing that the experimental growth hormone in the meat caused the reaction. They administer a special medicine, but Mickey merely stumbles around before collapsing in agony. Kenneth considers it more humane to end his suffering, and Ilfa moves her carpet to avoid any bloodstains. Kai, horrified by their callousness, protests, but Kenneth reminds her that Mickey is just an experiment. Mickey pleads not to be shot, insisting he feels better, so Kai takes him away. In Kai's room, Mickey notices photos revealing that Kai and Jennifer were once in a relationship. Kai asks him what dying is like, wanting to understand Jennifer's experience. Mickey admits it's terrifying and that he hates it. Kai then tries to grow closer to him, but he panics and flees. Upon reaching his room, Nasha immediately recognizes him as 17, implying that 18 has already spoken to her. Giggling, she uses lipstick to mark numbers on their chests. 18 seems friendlier, and 17 notices an empty bottle, confirming they took oxazofil. An argument erupts between the clones, but Nasha intervenes, suggesting they split chores and rations. She then brings them to bed, where things take an intimate turn. Just as the trio begins to indulge, Kai walks in, sees everything, and leaves in silence. Nasha runs after her, while the clones watch TV, a ridiculous talk show featuring Kenneth and his scientists. 18, growing angrier as 17 recounts the dinner events, throws his drink at the screen. Enraged, he grabs Nasha's gun and storms out, determined to kill Kenneth. Meanwhile, Nasha catches up with Kai, who insists on reporting the multiples since they are illegal. Kai offers to stay silent if Nasha gives her a Mickey, but Nasha refuses, saying he isn't a toy. Their argument is interrupted when 18 rushes by, followed by 17, who warns them that he has a gun. At the cafeteria, a laser machine slices a massive rock in half, revealing a black diamond. 18 hides in the crowd, preparing to shoot, but a Kenneth fanatic tackles him. At the same time, a creeper emerges from the rock, causing panic. As people flee, Kenneth climbs onto a table, shouting orders to capture the creature alive. Scientists, dressed in hazmat suits, give chase but fail. Kenneth then spots 17 and orders him to join the hunt. When the creeper stops, 17 attempts to mimic the sounds he heard previously, drawing the attention of a scientist named Dorothy. Meanwhile, 18 regains his weapon and fires, but 17 and Nasha tackle him. The bullet grazes Kenneth's cheek and punctures the diamond. Just as Kenneth begins complaining about the multiples, a second creeper lunges at his face. The guards, along with Kai, open fire, reducing the creature to a pile of goo while the scientists capture the first one. The baby creeper's cries echo into the crevasse, alerting the massive mother below. Minutes later, Nasha and the clones find themselves locked in cages. A heated debate ensues about the creepers, and 17 shares his encounter in the crevasse, believing they found him repulsive. However, Nasha corrects him, revealing they actually saved him. Suddenly, a bag smacks the sleeping guard on the head. It's Timo, who sneaks in effortlessly since the guard is one of his clients. Timo hands 17 a letter he found on his door, revealing that Darius' men have followed them into space. Darius is willing to forgive the debt if Timo sends a video of Mickey being dismembered with a chainsaw. As the guard sets up the camera, Timo, in tears, begs 17 to save him, claiming he'll die otherwise. Kai calls him out for his dramatics, prompting Timo to drop the act and instruct the guard to tase 17. 18, seeing an opportunity, offers to take 17's place, arguing that he has a higher pain tolerance, but first, he requests some oxazofil. As the guard moves closer, 18 seizes his wrist and slams his head against the bars. Simultaneously, Nasha snatches his gun and tases Timo. She then grabs the guard's keys, unlocking the cell and retrieving the chainsaw, preparing to finish Timo off. At that moment, Zeke arrives, catching them in the act. Once again, everyone is arrested. As the group is led through the corridors, 17 realizes that Nasha has always protected him, recalling a time she requested a hazmat suit just to comfort him during a particularly toxic experiment. When they reach the front windows, they see that the spaceship is now entirely surrounded by creepers. Meanwhile, the scientists transport the crying baby, and when Dorothy spots 17, she mimics the sounds he made earlier in the cafeteria, which he repeats. She believes it could be an actual language and considers developing a translator for it. Everyone is taken to the cycler room, where Ilfa severs the baby's tail just to make a new source. Kenneth then brands 18's cheek with a heated metal rod to distinguish the clones from one another. He also instructs a scientist to erase the entire memory backup from the brick. As Kenneth complains about the creepers, Nasha counters that the creepers are the planet's native species, making humans the real aliens. She also reveals that the creatures saved Mickey. Kenneth, however, scoffs at this, explaining that the creepers didn't eat him because they considered him trash. Dorothy interjects, explaining that her team is working on a translator. When the baby on the table spits at Kenneth, he furiously hurls the heated rod, but misses. Losing his temper, Kenneth rants about how nothing makes sense. Nasha shouts back, mocking him. Enraged, Kenneth dangles the baby over the cycler hole, tossing the other end of the rope to Nasha, forcing her to catch it with her teeth to prevent the baby from falling. Zeke instructs one of his men to record everything using a hidden camera embedded in his glasses. Kenneth then declares his intention to gas all the creepers, but Ilfa has a different plan. Explosives are strapped to the clones' backs, and Kenneth is given 2 buttons to detonate them. Ilfa proposes a competition. The clones must cut off as many creeper tails as possible. The first Mickey to bring back 100 tails wins and gets to live. The loser will be executed. As they leave, 17 believes this is their punishment for the car crash. However, 18 insists that the car was defective and their mother's death was merely an accident, not their fault. At the entrance, Dorothy catches up to them and hands them a prototype translator. The two search the swarm of creepers and eventually find the mother, who now understands Mickey. She knows his name and reminds him that she saved him, only for the humans to respond by killing her baby. She warns that if the captured creeper dies, she will exterminate all humans. To emphasize her point, she begins screeching, and her babies mimic her. The clones cover their ears, but the mother explains that they can cause human eyes and brains to explode if they choose. Aboard the spaceship, Kenneth and Ilfa panic as they witness the clones communicating with the creepers. Suddenly, 17 runs toward the cameras, forming a C3 with his fingers, a signal Nasha recognizes as meaning "bring the baby." Ilfa and the church representative dismiss it as nonsense, arguing that Kenneth should be the one communicating with this new species. As Kenneth prepares for a grand entrance, 17 assures the mother that Nasha will return the baby. However, the mother insists that to truly even the score, a human must also die for the lost creeper baby. 3 vehicles led by Kenneth depart from the spaceship. Meanwhile, Nasha makes a daring leap, wrapping her legs around Ilfa to subdue her. Zeke grabs the rope, and Nasha agrees to release Ilfa in exchange for permission to deliver the baby to the mother. As Zeke prepares to return the rope, Ilfa slashes his wrist, causing him to drop it, but Nasha catches it just in time. Ilfa demands Nasha's arrest, but Zeke accuses Kenneth and Ilfa of abuse, announcing that their case will be presented to the committee. As the vehicles approach, the creeper babies rush to their mother, forming protective piles. The guards hesitate, unsure which one to target. Kenneth selects one at random, but before he can act, 18 suddenly appears. The church representative shoves a soldier, causing the rocket to explode harmlessly in the sky, otherwise, 18's bomb would have detonated and killed them all. Kenneth then opens fire, but only manages to destroy the camera, giving 18 the opportunity to tackle him. Meanwhile, Nasha arrives with the baby, and 18 declares that he will kill a human as the mother demanded. He hesitates briefly, and Kenneth attempts to manipulate him by exploiting his fear of death. However, 18 ultimately presses the detonator, killing both himself and Kenneth. Satisfied, the creepers retreat in peace. Once everything settles, the entire crew is imprisoned. Ilfa loses her mind and is committed to a psych ward, where she ultimately self-deletes. Timo encounters one of Darius' men and bites off his ear before throwing him into the cycler, but is later released on probation under self-defense. The trials of the remaining crew members become a tangled legal and political ordeal. After serving her sentence, Nasha decides to run for a position on the committee in hopes of reforming the organization. Meanwhile, Dorothy successfully completes the translator, and Mickey frequently converses with the creepers. He eventually learns that their screeching was nothing more than a bluff, the sound was meaningless and posed no real threat to humans. 6 months later, Mickey spots a figure near the cycler and discovers Ilfa bringing a new Kenneth into existence. He remarks that she's supposed to be dead, so Ilfa extends her bleeding hand for him to touch. Unlike the haunting memories of his mother's death, this time, Mickey feels no fear. Then, he wakes up. Seated among the crowd, he listens to Nasha's speech as the newly appointed committee leader. As she declares the termination of the Expendables program, Mickey silently presses a button, triggering the destruction of the cycler.